12 minutes ago, inside the White House West Wing's most secure conference room, something happened that will fundamentally alter how America views both the FBI and the current administration. FBI Director Kash Patel walked out of a classified briefing, slammed his folder down on the mahogany table so hard it echoed through the corridors, and said 5 words that made every White House staffer within earshot freeze in their tracks. "The files get released. Period." What led to this moment wasn't just bureaucratic tension. It wasn't political maneuvering. It was the complete breakdown of a carefully orchestrated cover-up that had been 6 months in the making, and Kash Patel had just declared war on the very people who put him in his position. The meeting was scheduled for 2:30 p.m., marked on internal calendars as routine classification review. Standard procedure, boring government work. The kind of session where officials discuss document redactions, debate security protocols, and nobody pays attention because nothing interesting ever happens in classification reviews. But Patel walked into that room carrying a black leather briefcase that contained 340 pages of documents the White House had specifically ordered him not to review. Documents that detailed every connection, every flight log, every financial transaction, every witness statement related to Jeffrey Epstein's operation. The complete, unredacted files that had been sitting in FBI vaults for 4 years. 3 White House officials were waiting for him. Chief of Staff Sarah Matthews, Deputy National Security Advisor Michael Ellis, and someone whose presence changed everything, White House Counsel Pat Cipollone. When the White House counsel shows up to a classification meeting, it means one thing: legal exposure. Real legal exposure. Patel set his briefcase on the table and looked directly at Matthews. The tension was immediate and obvious. Matthews had her own folder, much thinner, marked with classification stamps. Ellis was checking his phone nervously. Cipollone was taking notes before anyone had said a word. "Director Patel," Matthews began, her voice carrying that careful tone White House officials use when they're about to deliver bad news. "We've reviewed your request regarding the Epstein document release, and there are significant concerns." Patel didn't respond immediately. He opened his briefcase with deliberate precision, pulled out a stack of documents nearly 2 inches thick, and placed them directly in front of Matthews. The sound of paper hitting wood was the only noise in the room for 15 seconds. "These," Patel said, his voice calm but carrying an edge, "are the concerns, real concerns, documented evidence of criminal activity that the American people have a right to know about." Matthews glanced at the documents without touching them. Her face showed the kind of controlled panic that Washington insiders perfect after years of crisis management. Ellis stopped checking his phone. Cipollone's pen stopped moving. "Director, we appreciate your commitment to transparency, but the political implications of releasing these specific documents could destabilize ongoing diplomatic relationships and compromise national security interests." That was the moment. The critical moment when Kash Patel realized he wasn't dealing with legitimate national security concerns. He was dealing with a cover-up, and his face changed. The professional mask he'd worn for months as FBI director disappeared, replaced by something much more dangerous: a federal law enforcement officer who had just been asked to obstruct justice. "Political implications," Patel repeated slowly. He pulled out a specific document from his stack, held it up so everyone could see the FBI seal at the top. "Is that what we're calling witness testimony from trafficking victims now? Political implications?" The temperature in the room dropped. Ellis shifted in his seat. Matthews's controlled expression cracked slightly. Cipollone leaned forward, clearly preparing to intervene, but Patel wasn't finished. "This document," he continued, "contains testimony from a 19-year-old girl who was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. She names 7 individuals who participated in her assault. 7 people who held positions of significant influence and continue to hold positions of significant influence." He set the document down and stared directly at Matthews. "She's now 28 years old. She's been waiting 9 years for justice. And you want me to classify her testimony as politically sensitive? The silence stretched for 30 seconds. In high-level government meetings, 30 seconds of silence means someone is about to either surrender completely or declare war. Matthews chose surrender, but with conditions. Director Patel, we understand the moral complexities of this situation, but the broader implications extend beyond individual cases. The stability of current international relationships, the potential for diplomatic incidents, the risk of exposing intelligence sources and methods. Stop. Patel's voice cut through her explanation like ice. Just stop. I've read every single page in this briefcase. I know exactly what's in these files. And what's in these files isn't intelligence sources and methods, it's evidence of crimes, serious crimes, committed by people who thought their power would protect them forever. He pulled out another document, this one marked with red classification stamps. Flight logs. Detailed flight logs showing 127 trips to Epstein's private island. The passengers included 2 sitting senators, a federal judge, 3 Fortune 500 CEOs, and a foreign minister from a NATO ally. Ellis finally spoke, his voice strained. Director, surely you understand that exposing a sitting federal judge could compromise ongoing cases, create appeals processes that could free dangerous criminals? Patel turned toward Ellis with an expression that made the Deputy National Security Advisor visibly uncomfortable. Are you seriously suggesting that protecting a federal judge who may have participated in child trafficking is more important than justice for the victims? The question hung in the air like smoke, because that's exactly what Ellis was suggesting, and everyone in the room knew it. Cipollone cleared his throat, clearly preparing to provide legal justification for the unjustifiable. The legal framework surrounding these documents is complex. Chain of custody issues, statute of limitations concerns, the potential for compromising ongoing investigations. What ongoing investigations? Patel's voice rose for the first time. I'm the FBI director. I know every ongoing investigation in this bureau. There are no active cases related to these files because every request to open investigations has been denied by this White House for 4 years. He stood up, which changed the entire dynamic of the meeting. Standing up in a seated meeting is psychological warfare. It's a signal that negotiations are over. Let me be very clear about what's happening here, Patel said, his voice now carrying the authority of someone who had just decided to burn every bridge in Washington. You called me into this room to ask me to suppress evidence of child trafficking because investigating that evidence might embarrass powerful people. People who contribute to campaigns, people who attend state dinners, people who are protected by this administration. Matthews tried to regain control. Director, that's an unfair characterization of our position. We're asking for a measured approach that considers all stakeholders. All stakeholders? Patel pulled out a photograph from his briefcase. A school photograph of a teenage girl with blonde hair and a bright smile. This is Maria Santos. She was 16 when she was trafficked to Jeffrey Epstein's island. She testified to the FBI in 2019. She provided detailed accounts of her experiences, named her abusers, and offered to testify in court. He placed the photograph on the table where everyone could see it. Maria Santos is your stakeholder, not the people who hurt her, not the people who enabled her abuse, not the people whose careers might be damaged by the truth. The room was absolutely silent. Ellis was staring at his hands. Matthews was looking everywhere except at the photograph. Cipollone had stopped taking notes entirely. Patel sat back down, but his posture remained aggressive. I've been FBI director for 6 months. In those 6 months, I've received 47 requests from this White House to delay, deny, or destroy documents related to the Epstein investigation. 47. Each request justified by national security concerns that don't exist or political sensitivities that aren't my responsibility. He opened his briefcase again and pulled out a folder labeled White House Correspondence, Epstein Files. Every email, every phone call, every meeting request. I documented everything. because I knew this moment was coming. I knew eventually you would ask me to choose between doing my job and protecting your political interests. Matthews finally found her voice, but it lacked its earlier confidence. Director Patel, we're not asking you to choose. We're asking you to work within the framework of responsible governance. Responsible governance doesn't include covering up child trafficking, Patel interrupted. And it doesn't include using the FBI as a political protection service for wealthy predators. He pulled out one final document, this one different from the others. It was typed on White House letterhead, dated 2 weeks earlier. This is a memorandum from the Chief of Staff's office to the FBI director. It orders the indefinite postponement of all document releases related to high-profile individuals connected to the Epstein investigation. He held it up so everyone could see the official seal. It's signed by Sarah Matthews. It specifically mentions political complications as justification for withholding evidence of federal crimes. Matthews's face went pale. The memorandum was supposed to be confidential, internal correspondence that would never see daylight. Patel having a copy meant he had been preparing for this confrontation for weeks. That document is classified executive communication, Cipollone said quickly. Its disclosure would violate... Its existence violates federal law, Patel cut him off. Specifically 18 U.S.C. Section 1519, obstruction of justice, and 18 U.S.C. Section 371, conspiracy to obstruct justice. The legal citations landed like bombs. Cipollone knew exactly what those statutes meant. Matthews knew. Ellis knew. They were all potentially facing criminal charges if this conversation became public. Patel closed his briefcase with a snap that echoed through the room. The Epstein files will be released within 72 hours. All of them. Every flight log, every witness statement, every photograph, every financial record. The American people will see what their government has been hiding from them. He stood up again, this time to leave. And if anyone in this White House attempts to interfere with that release, if anyone tries to invoke executive privilege or national security exemptions, if anyone makes any effort to delay or obstruct the publication of these documents, I will personally deliver copies to every major news outlet in Washington. Matthews made one final attempt to salvage the situation. Director Patel, please consider the broader implications. The damage this could do to the institution of government itself. Patel stopped at the door and turned back toward the table. The institution of government damaged itself when it decided to protect child traffickers. I'm just cleaning up the mess. He walked out, leaving 3 White House officials staring at each other across a table covered with evidence they had spent months trying to suppress. Within 30 minutes, emergency meetings were being scheduled, legal reviews were being ordered, crisis management teams were being assembled. But it was too late. Kash Patel had made his choice. The files would be released, the names would become public, and the carefully constructed wall of protection around some of America's most powerful individuals was about to collapse completely. The briefcase contained more than documents. It contained the end of careers, the destruction of reputations, and the beginning of the largest criminal investigation in FBI history. All because 3 White House officials had asked an FBI director to choose politics over justice. They had chosen the wrong FBI director. The explosion would begin in 72 hours. But the confrontation that started it all had just ended, with Kash Patel walking down the West Wing corridor, carrying a briefcase full of dynamite, ready to detonate the biggest cover-up in Washington history.